Hello, happy Passover. I hope you had wonderful Seders. I know many people Zoomed, and I heard some great stories about Zooming with connecting people in Israel and connecting with older relatives who normally wouldn't be able to be at Seder. Tamara and I had a wonderful time Zooming Seders for members of the congregation, and we really enjoyed having those who could join us for Seder. Tonight begins Yontif, and we'll celebrate the last 2 days of Passover, with Passover ending on Thursday night. And I want to start out with a little test for you, a little quiz. I'm going to ask you, what is it that you see on what I'm holding up? What is it that you see? I would assume many of you would say a black dot. And while that is true, the black dot takes up less than 1% of what I presented. It's actually a large white sheet of paper, and it just happens to have a tiny dot on it. But the black dot grabs our attention. And what I want to speak about very briefly is, how do we frame life? How do we frame our experiences? How do we frame challenging things that happen in our lives? If we focus too much on the black dot and we forget the large white border around it, it can bring us down in a way which we don't need to be. We can be uplifted when we look at and think about the rest of the frame around the black dot. And we learned this story in a really interesting midrash on the Torah reading tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to celebrate the Israelites going through the sea and the splitting of the sea, one of the greatest miracles performed in the entire Torah. And yet there's a midrash that says 2 Israelites who were there missed the miracle. How did they miss the miracle? Their names were Shimon and Reuven. They stepped into the sea after it had split. It was like the beach at low tide, but maybe a little bit muddier, and there was some mud. And they looked down and they said, "Oh, look at this mud." And the other one said, "Yes, this mud reminds me of the slime pits that we worked in Egypt." And they were looking down the whole time. And one said to his friend, "Mud here, mud in Egypt, what's the difference?" And the entire time they were looking down. So when they got to the other side, they couldn't understand why everybody was singing and celebrating. Not once did they look up and see the incredible miracle they were experiencing. So let's make sure that we are not like Shimon and Reuven. Let's make sure that we look at the bigger picture. We don't just focus on what's negative. We don't just focus on what's challenging. We need to know what's in front of us. We need to see potential dangers, and we need to be prepared. But we can't just focus on that. There's too much goodness. There's too much love. There's too many miracles that are built into creation and that surround us. I hope we can think about that and focus on that as we celebrate these last 2 days of Passover. Chag Sameach.